Hi bestie, welcome back to Living with Ease. I'm filming, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm filming at a different time today because, oh my god, I just got back from the DMV because between you and me, I've been driving around with an expired license for the past few months because I've been too lazy to go take the driving test because I had to get a California ID, and I finally went to the DMV today. I was there for like 3-4 hours, but I finally have an ID because my mom was like, I'm driving up tomorrow to Tahoe to visit family for Thanksgiving with Celia, and my mom was like, you could literally get arrested because you're driving without a license, so you should really go get your license. So anyway, if you're watching on YouTube, the lighting is like going down. I'm trying to beat the time before the sun goes down because the sun goes down so early now. But I kind of like high-key love daylight savings. I know that's a very unpopular opinion, but it's just like, I love when it's dark and I get to turn my lamps on and get like cozy and read in bed. Like for me, like I thrive in daylight savings because I just find it so cozy. And I don't like any harsh lighting. I like everything to be low and dim with candles on. And so yeah, I'm a huge fan of daylight savings, but I do have to kind of like, I don't know how the lighting will be on this. Whatever, I'm rambling. Anyway, welcome back. I also update, before we get into today's episode, I went on anxiety medication. If you follow me on TikTok, you might have seen. But it just got to the point where I was like, what the hell? Like, and a lot of you messaged me too and were like, from feedback from my OCD episode, and were like, you should, like, medication helped me so much. Like, and that really inspired me because, I don't know, last week, if you follow me on TikTok, I literally was just posting like video after video of me crying because I was like having a mental breakdown. And I was like, I mean, I like to share everything on TikTok because I feel like if I'm going through it, maybe I can help someone else who's going through it, because I know like that helps me. So when I'm crying, you know, I pick up the camera and I film, but then people are like, oh my god, she's spiraling. But I was spiraling. Last week, I started to just panic that my life was over for quite literally no reason. I just like started to get in this crazy spiral and was like sobbing for like 3 days straight, like such bad anxiety, like could not leave my apartment. And it was after that spiral that I was like, you know what? Maybe I should get on medication again. So I made an appointment with a psychiatrist and I met with him on Sunday. I feel like he was like a little bit flirty. But that's aside the point. He prescribed me Prozac and I'm back on Prozac now. I was on Prozac my sophomore year of college for only like 3 or 4 weeks and then I like got off it. I don't really know why, but I need my brain to be balanced out because I'm just not enjoying my real life. So I got that, and then I also got some beta blockers, which are great. I've been taking them every day. I don't know if that's okay to take them every day, but like I feel like it is. It says I can take 2 a day max. So, and beta blockers just like basically like prevent your brain from like feeling panicked, and so that's like been really helping me. I'm only on day 3 of Prozac, but hopefully it will get better. And then in December, I have another appointment with my psychiatrist, and I'm going to maybe add Wellbutrin too, because like it really helps with depression. And it does help with depression. Well, I'm not even really that depressed. Am I depressed? I don't know. I meant to say it helps with motivation, but I think it also helps with depression. I'm taking it for like the lack of motivation. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure, but maybe I'm a little depressed. But yeah, I'm gonna get on that too. But it can cause anxiety. It like forces your brain to make dopamine or something, but it also can cause anxiety. So we're on the Prozac first. That's my whole spiel. So yeah, I'm a medicated girl now, and hopefully it will really help me. I think it will. And yeah, obviously like I'm not really gonna notice the effects of Prozac for like a few weeks. I'm like convincing myself I already am like starting to feel better, but like I think that's probably placebo. But yeah, so anyway, if anyone else is out there who's like waiting for so long to go on medication, like I don't know why I waited so long. There's no reason to feel this way if you don't have to, and I literally don't have to feel this way. I could just go on medication and fix it. So that's what I'm doing. That is where we are now. Anyway, today's episode, I am going to talk to you about being comfortable with being alone, because this was so hard for me for so long, and learning to be comfortable being alone like changed my life, because I think when you're uncomfortable with being alone, you sometimes cling on to like toxic relationships for too long, or toxic friendships for too long, or like you're just putting yourself in situations that maybe aren't serving you just because you'd rather like be with someone than be alone, or like spend time like in this place than rather be alone. My whole life I've never felt comfortable being alone, and it took me basically being in a situation that was like complete isolation to learn to be alone. And it's changed my life. Like I feel like I'm almost untouchable now in a way, because like it's not to say I don't still get sad over things, because I still get very sad over things, but I don't stay in things for too long now. Like if, for example, like a relationship is not serving me anymore, I don't feel like I need that person, because I know I'm okay on my own. I really have learned to be my own best friend, and I think that is the most important thing you can do in life, because at the end of the day, all you really have is you. So anyway, I guess like we will just get straight into it. I have always been uncomfortable being alone, like I said, and I don't know like where this comes from. I was like kind of thinking about it, and I did talk to a therapist about it before, because I always felt really uncomfortable being alone in the sense of like not having a boyfriend. Like that used to make me feel so awkward, and I used to feel so embarrassed being single. And I think like apparently like my therapist at the time said it was like kind of a form of social anxiety, because I told you guys like I have a loser complex that I'm still dealing with right now, not because I'm single, but like I this is actually a lot more deep rooted than I thought it was. But I think I would never let myself be single for that long, because I felt like with a boyfriend, it was almost like a protective shield. I don't really know if that makes sense, but I never wanted to, I would stay in things for too long and like not let myself be alone or on my own, because I felt like if I had a boyfriend, then no one could really think I was a loser, because it's like proof that at least one person in this world like likes me, which sounds like so depressing, but I think like that in itself was like a really deep-rooted issue for me, and I was so uncomfortable with being single and being by myself, because when you're by yourself and you don't have a boyfriend, hypothetically, like maybe no one likes you, like especially when you go through periods of time where you don't have friends. Like when I have a boyfriend, I'm like, okay, at least one person likes me, one person has to have my back and like agree with me on things and like be there for me, and I can take them to events, and like I don't know, I hate that feeling of like when people pity you, and I felt like the whole world pitied me for being single. So I would never like want to be single, because I felt like having a boyfriend would take that away and be like my shield, and people would like not pity me, and I'd be like, I don't care if I wasn't invited to like this party, or I wasn't invited to hang out with this person, or this friend decided they don't want to talk to me anymore, because I'm like, well, I have a boyfriend and at least one person likes me. So that made me stay in so many relationships for so much longer than I wanted to, because it was like this security blanket for me. And I would stay in relationships that were so bad. I mean, I haven't really had a good relationship, to be quite frank, but it made me stay in things for so long because I was so scared of being by myself, because I felt like I needed someone that I could like call when I'm like walking home from class, or like text me good morning. Like I felt like I just like would not be okay if I didn't get a good morning text or a good night text, and like I needed proof that someone cared about me. And if I didn't have proof that someone cared about me, then I felt like a loser that no one cared about, which also I am starting to think too, doesn't have to do with me being single right now, but I have still been like feeling like the whole world pities me right now in a different way, which is why I want medication. So that must be like a really deep-rooted issue in me. I don't know where that really comes from. Also, I've never been someone who's had like a big friend group before, so I feel like having a boyfriend made me feel less weird about that. I've always had my best friend Celia. We've been best friends since 4th grade. I've always had her. I have my best friend Alex, and I'm like so grateful. But there's been times in my life where I'm not living in the same city as Celia, or I don't think I've really ever lived in the same city since high school as Alex. And like I've gone through so many periods in my life where I have had no friends, and it makes me feel so weird. And so then I'd be like, well, if I have a boyfriend, then I don't feel weird. But there's been multiple times in my life where while I have these close friends, like we don't live in the same city. And while I'm so grateful for my close friendships, there's obviously been times where like we haven't lived near each other, and there's been so many times in my life where I have literally had like almost no friends, and in circumstances like that, like I feel like I always made sure I had a boyfriend so that I wouldn't be alone, because I like just felt like I needed someone else there, and I would feel weird about it, especially like when I transferred to Suffolk and then Celia went abroad for a year. Transferring to Suffolk, it was like really hard to make friends, so I like basically had no friends, and I went through a breakup, and it was like I ended up getting back together with him because I was like, I feel really weird right now and I don't want to be alone. Anyway, this is the pattern. Many times in my life, I have had little to no friends, and I have always tried to stick a boyfriend to that. When everything changed for me was law school. About 3 weeks into starting law school, I had like the most devastating breakup, and I had just moved to New York. This was the first time I was living alone by myself. I get broken up with, I have no friends, and now I'm single, and now I'm like the weirdo who's single, because I always like equated like being single with being weird. And I'm living in this studio apartment with just Cleo and Luna, and I would just go to school and then go home. And this is when I was like really struggling with panic attacks too. And I wanted so badly to like not be alone that I would force myself to like go out to clubs with people I barely knew, just so that it would seem like I had friends and seem like I was doing something to the outside world. I literally would like go to clubs with people I barely knew, have a miserable time, and then I'd be like, okay, well, let's just stay out till 3, then that's like you had a night, and then go home. Like that's how uncomfortable I was with being alone. I was just spending time with people I didn't even know and didn't feel comfortable with and did not have fun with, just so that it seemed like I wasn't alone, because I was spiraling so bad that I was single and didn't have friends. And then the pandemic hit, and I went home to my parents' house outside of New York. And I obviously, I think everyone thought I was gonna go home for 2 weeks, and I ended up going home for a year and a half. And I am so thankful for that year, because it truly transformed my brain into a way I learned to love being alone and embrace it. And I think that's helped me so much these past years of life. My mom is immunocompromised, and so I obviously took the pandemic very seriously, and basically for a year and a half did not hang out with anyone. And since my mom was immunocompromised, she was living in my house, but we put up a piece of plexiglass on one of our living rooms that had a bathroom. So she was living in her own little separate part of the house, and I didn't hang out with my mom for a year, because my dad, in what he does for work, he sees patients all day, and so there was a risk of obviously my mom getting sick because there was so much exposure to people. So she was on the other side of the house. So it was just me and my dad on the side of the house, and he was gone all day at work. And then I could talk to my mom through the plexiglass, but not hang out with her. And obviously because of this, I was just being over the top careful. And also I was in my hometown. I don't have any friends from my hometown except for Celia, and she was in New York, and my friend Alex, who also wasn't home. So it was just me at home in law school, spiraling still over a breakup, no friends and nothing to do. And I was so depressed and so anxious and just uncomfortable, I would say, for the first 6 months of the pandemic, and just being at my house. I'm very close with my family, and obviously I had them, but this was the first time in my life where I literally just did not hang out with anyone, have any friends, wasn't talking to any guys. I feel before I felt I always had to at least be talking to a guy, because that would make me feel more normal. So I mean, how was I gonna talk to a guy? Yeah, there's dating apps, but I wasn't really matching with anyone or talking to it was just complete isolation aside from my parents. And so after about 6 months hit, the fall of 2020 going into 2021, I think was a very transformative time for me, because I remember it so vividly when I forced my brain to switch, because I was so depressed and so sad and just felt so empty inside every day. And then I was driving in the car listening to an audiobook, and I kind of was just I had this moment of realization where I was I'm actually just enjoying sitting in the car right now by myself listening to this audiobook, and I actually can just enjoy spending time with myself, like I can think of this as like having fun with myself, and like I am my own friend, because I don't really know how to explain it, but it was like I just realized like I literally am my own friend, and I literally get to hang out with myself. And how fun is that? Because when I'm hanging out with myself, I can do whatever I want. And I started to kind of think of myself objectively, if that makes sense. It sounds weird, but it wasn't like an out of body thing, but it was just like I kind of looked down on myself, and not looked down on myself negatively, like looked from above down on myself, and was just like, wow, like I'm actually like a fun person to hang out with and spend time with, and how lucky that I get to spend like these days with myself, because I like myself. And that sounds weird, but it was like this epiphany, like aha moment where I realized like I didn't have to be miserable alone. Like I could really embrace this time of like isolation and being alone, because it was probably like gonna be one of the only periods in my life where like I'm alone. I mean, I'm still alone right now, but eventually hopefully I'll get like married and have kids. Like right now in your 20s is the time to be alone, because assuming my life goes the way I want it to, I will eventually never be alone again. And when this day happened, I started to like just, I don't know, like I would go for walks with myself and like just think about like how fun it was that I was going on a walk with myself because I was my own friend. Or I would go on a drive in the car and like put an audiobook on or listen to music, and like I wouldn't think like, oh, like I'm alone right now. I'd be like, wow, this is so nice, like I'm hanging out with myself. And I would sometimes like drive like an hour away to a grocery store just to like spend the day with myself. I'd go to the grocery store, then I'd like get like a burrito, eat it in my car, listen to an audiobook, and it was just like the comfiest time of my life. I am really, really, really hard on myself. And I, for the longest time, like, and I still catch myself like doing it sometimes, but like I will think like I'm not a fun person to be around. But when I started to think of like myself gently and be like, oh, like I'm a person who like goes through things, and like I really like only have myself, and like I started to think of myself like with empathy and like gently, it just like transformed my whole thinking about myself. But then it was time to go back to New York after a year and a half of isolation and like figuring out how to be comfortable being alone. And I think I kind of regressed a little bit, because when I went back to New York after not being social for so long, I was like, okay, it's time to be social. Like I want to be social. I want a boyfriend now. I want friends. But the problem with like law school, at least for me, like I felt like especially in like a big city, I think big cities are the hardest place to make friends. And I think New York is one of the loneliest cities like ever. Like, I mean, I guess I've lived in Boston, LA, New York, and out of the three, like New York was just so lonely for me. I didn't have time to be making friends, and I also was like adjusting now to, I had this year and a half of being alone by myself, but it was at my parents' house and like in nature, and like I still like would have dinner with my dad every night and wave to my mom through like the plexiglass. So it was not like obviously like I was completely alone. And this was really hard for me because I got really antsy and started to really want friends, which I think is very natural to want friends, obviously. But I started to feel really sad about being alone again, kind of, because I guess while I had become comfortable with being alone during the pandemic, and like I thought I had like this gentle feeling about myself, I also did think that like when I went back to New York I would make friends, and I just really didn't ever make friends. And I think that makes you feel like something's wrong with you, like if you can't make friends. And like you go on social media and you see people hanging out with their friends and doing things on the weekends. Like I never had plans on the weekends. It was more like when Friday came, I'd be like, okay, well, I'm gonna go home and sit in my apartment by myself. And I started to like catch myself pitying myself again and like being like, woe was me, like my life sucks, like no one wants to hang out with me. And it is an embarrassing feeling, genuinely. Like I think it's like human nature obviously to want to hang out with people. When you feel like no one wants to hang out with you, it makes you feel weird. But I kind of just got to the point where I was like, okay, if this person doesn't want to be friends with me, and I'm actually going through this right now, like if this person doesn't want to be friends with me, then I don't need them to be friends with me. I don't need anyone in my life who doesn't want to be friends with me and doesn't serve me, because I have myself. I just started to kind of romanticize my nights alone. If you followed me on TikTok back then, I would do like a series like every Friday, Saturday night. I would spend the night alone. And I felt like at first embarrassed, especially because I'm putting my life out there, and so many people would comment on my TikTok and be like, do you have any friends? And I'd be like, no, not really. And that makes you feel like really embarrassed to say, but I started just like every Friday night I would have this routine of, hi Luna, I would have like a routine where I would put on music and cook and like have a glass of wine and then pick a TV show I wanted to watch by myself and have an early bedtime, go out for ice cream. And like it would have been really easy to think of that as like a sad, lonely time in my life, but I would catch myself whenever I would do that and then just make myself feel grateful that I was able to spend this solitude and like lonely time with myself. And I think that was just the most important lesson I've ever learned in my life, and I'm still very much alone. I live alone with Cleo and Luna. I moved to LA because I couldn't make any friends in New York at all, and so I do have friends here now, but I still don't have like a ton of friends. I still am very much in a period of time right now where I'm alone, and like you have to think of yourself, I guess, like moral of the story, you just have to think of yourself as your own friend. And I love myself. I have so much fun with myself, and like instead of thinking like, wow, like I'm alone, no one wants to hang out with me, like think of that as a positive thing. You can sit with yourself and do whatever you want to do. When you hang out with people, you have to like compromise, and maybe you have to go to dinner where they want to go to dinner, or like this might be like the last day or the last week where like you are alone and by yourself, because in your 20s, like this is a time to figure yourself out and be alone. And that really hit hard because like you really could meet who you're gonna marry like any day, and then like after that, like you are never alone. So it's such a special time to figure out yourself and learn things about yourself. And like I think it's so much better to be by yourself than have toxic people in your life just so you're not alone. And moral of the story, yeah, you just have to treat yourself like your own best friend. I have so much fun with myself. I talk to myself. I make myself whatever I want to eat. I do whatever I want to do. If I want to go out to eat, I could go out to eat by myself. I can go for a drive and listen to a podcast by myself. I can go for a walk and listen to an audiobook by myself. I can watch whatever I want on TV. And obviously, like, yeah, do I want a boyfriend someday, sooner than later? Obviously, yeah, but I'm so comfortable being on my own that now if I recognize that someone's like being toxic towards me or like not serving, it's become so easy for me to drop them because I just realized like I'm cool by myself. Like I don't need anyone. And I think when you learn to like genuinely appreciate yourself and start to look at yourself more gently and empathetically is when your life is going to improve and you're not going to let people do things or put up with things to you really anymore. Because now like I've been dropping like men left and right now because, I mean, not left and right, that makes it sound like I'm like, oh my God, like so many guys are talking to me. But like, no, like when I do, like before I'd let things go on for so long, like for example, like my most recent situationship I was in, like I probably would have let that go on for like another year if like it was me a year ago. But now that I value and appreciate myself and love myself and I'm so comfortable alone and don't need anyone, if someone is toxic, like, and they don't serve me, like, I just drop them so easily now. Anyway, this all goes to say, like, it's not weird to be alone. I went through the phase for so long where I felt weird for not having friends. I felt weird for not having a boyfriend, and it's totally okay to not have friends. There are phases in your life where you're not going to have friends, and that's okay. I've gone through so many phases in my life where I've had little to no friends, and you just have to accept that, like, that's part of life. There's going to be parts of your life where you have a boyfriend and parts of your life where you don't. There's going to be parts of your life where you have so many friends, and there's going to be parts of your life where you spend every weekend alone. And because of these ebbs and flows in life, you need to just learn to be comfortable being by yourself, because at the end of the day, like, you really do only have yourself. And I'm always here for you. I mean, I found so much solace and comfort in podcasts and YouTube videos when I was going through a lonely period. And if you're ever feeling alone, seriously, you do have me, and I am here for you, and I will be here for you every Friday. I'm on TikTok. You can always message me. I get the feeling of feeling like so lonely and like you're never gonna have friends again. And like, I think we have periods of loneliness so that we can learn to be more comfortable with ourselves and know ourselves. Because if I didn't have those really uncomfortable periods where I was just completely by myself, I would be a completely different person, and not in a good way. Like, I have grown and matured so much and improved so much because I've spent so much time in being alone. And that would not have happened if you are always surrounded by people and you're always in a relationship and you're always spending time with friends and never sitting alone with yourself. You're not going to grow. You're not going to know yourself. You're not going to improve. So that's my whole spiel on being alone. And you're never alone because we have each other. And I love you. And not to be cheesy, but I mean, that was another thing that honestly really helped me during the pandemic and during like the end of law school, which I'm so thankful for, is that I never felt alone because I had such an amazing community on TikTok. Like that really helped me because I never feel alone because of you guys. And I hope that you listening to this never feel alone with me, because I don't want you to feel alone, and you are here. And I love you. And I will see you next week. Love you.